All right, joining me now is Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State and Fox News contributor. Mr. Secretary, how could the intelligence on the Taliban's strength be off by so much?
Laura, this was a terrible execution of an incredibly important mission. President Trump campaigned on and then for 4 years demanded that we find the path forward in Afghanistan where we got our young men and women home. It was the right path that we were headed down. We tried to work to try and find peace and reconciliation, but make no mistake about it, the Taliban knew. They knew that if they didn't do the things that we asked them to do, if they didn't honor their agreements, that if they threatened an American, if they even so much as scared an American, that we would bring real cost. And we did that. We did it time and time again. We had drawn down from a bit over 15,000 to just over 2,500 by the time we departed. And we had managed to keep a stable place. We had managed to make sure we protected Americans. We had the embassy secured. We had all of the things that you've seen fall apart over the last 96 hours in a way that just reflects so poorly on all the blood and treasure and work that we have done for those 20 years. It didn't have to be this way. It is not about whether we got our folks out. President Biden spent a lot of time talking about that today. It was about the how we execute that and the failures that we'd had for all of these years. We had come to an understanding with our adversaries, the Taliban. We weren't about to recognize them. We weren't about to beg them to protect our embassy. We made clear these are the expectations. These are conditions that you have to meet. They hadn't met them, and so we were continuing to our work to get our boys and girls home, but we weren't about to allow what we've seen happen these last 96 hours happen on our watch.
What are the chances, Mr. Secretary, that President Biden and Blinken have already struck a deal with the Taliban to be able to remove thousands of people from that airport over the next week or so? What are the chances of that deal having been struck already? And we'll never know if it had been, what price had been paid.
Yeah, I hope the probability is low. I pray that it is. Maybe they've got that done. That would actually suggest that they actually had a plan. You talked about all the planning and contingencies. You don't put 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people back in for something you've planned for after you just took them out. This is clearly unplanned activity. I'd be surprised if they have that kind of agreement. And if they do, I want to know what it is this is going to cost the United States of America in terms of our morality, in terms of the risk from the rest of the world. Laura, I've said this time and time again. We had a deterrence model. We knew that strength created peace, and we know that weakness begets war. You are seeing you're seeing the sum result of the weakness of the administration, whether it's our southern border, whether it's handing the Russians a pipeline completion that can threaten Europe. All of these things, the whole world watches. Chairman Kim, Xi Jinping, they are all watching what's happening today. And I hope this administration comes to understand that apologizing, placating, appeasing, being weak only presents risks to American security.
Yesterday in an interview, Liz Cheney had something to say about you, sir. Watch.
President Biden bears responsibility for making this decision, but there is no question that President Trump, his administration, Secretary Pompeo, they also bear very significant responsibility for this. They walked down this path of legitimizing the Taliban. The notion of we're going to end endless wars, that campaign slogan. What we're watching right now in Afghanistan is what happens when America withdraws from the world.
Mr. Secretary, your response.
Yeah, I think she's lost the bubble just a bit. In the end, we demonstrated that we could, in fact, conduct the American security mission in Afghanistan. We had a plan both to get our folks home and a plan to make sure that we reduce the risk that we'd ever be attacked from that place again. We had a plan to do it. We were well on our way to executing that. January 20th, Biden administration took over, and they pulled the last pin out of the Jenga pile without having thought about the ramifications that would result. So I think Congresswoman Cheney just thinks that we should have been there forever, another $30 billion a year. I went to some of those transfers of the dignified transfers of remains at Dover. Our young men and women did amazing work there. The young soldiers, our young airmen did remarkable work. It was time to get our team home. We could have done it in a way that would have reflected well on America and would have protected the interests we had. I think Representative Cheney just simply has a different view. She thinks we ought to be there, putting our kids at risk to do things that America simply has no vital interest in.
Secretary Pompeo, this is a catastrophic failure. You've said it. So many people today with enormous experience have said the same thing. where should the accountability lie for this? We have a president of the United States who's currently at Camp David. He's gone back there. We have people who went before Congress time and again and said things were pretty much on track. We had some challenges, but things were going well. This went on for 10, 12 years. We were getting those updates. Should Secretary Austin remain in his position? Should Mark Milley remain in his?
Boy, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to hold the leadership accountable. Maybe not even just this set. There may well be history that began 10, 11, 12 years ago that we need to go back and look at. But Laura, as I think about these things, our Constitution demands that the senior leader, our commander-in-chief, be held accountable. You know, we got handed lots of challenges when we walked into office. North Korea was building up its program. The previous administration had given back a fifth of Ukraine. We had lots of challenges. We didn't pass the buck. We didn't blame them. We just dealt with them. We confronted them. We took them on. President Biden is the one that needs to be held accountable for what's taking place in Afghanistan today and anything that befalls the United States as a result of the decisions he made on the way he executed this withdrawal in such a hasty, unplanned way that upended so much of the good work that had already been done. He needs to be held accountable, and he needs to make accountable those members of his team. But in the end, this falls to presidents, Laura.
And finally, sir, China has made no qualms, has no qualms about expressing its desire to take advantage of the situation. Mineral rights, the Belt and Road Initiative, trade through the region, and obviously looking at Taiwan with hungry eyes. What's happening there tonight, and what is your final comment on China?
So, Laura, with respect to the things that will happen in Afghanistan and Western China, good luck to the Chinese Communist Party. They're going to face some of the same challenges that everybody who's taken on this task of trying to build Afghanistan. It is a mess. They were a completely corrupt set of leaders there. So I think they'll face real challenges. I'm much more worried about what they'll do in the East with respect to Taiwan. They have seen that America is not prepared to defend the basic promises that it made under this leadership team. I hope this administration will do something to demonstrate, not just words, but something to demonstrate that we are prepared to do the right thing by the people of Taiwan. It will be really important to establish that deterrence model, especially after these enormous failures in Afghanistan.